Hey everyone. Today we're going to do all the little bits to get this thing out of the shop. We got to do a couple things here that you're going to do for 2GR swaps, but a lot of this stuff is just fixing because this car hasn't been on the road for a while. So the list for today, we need a new clutch cylinder, and the clutch line currently ends in a rusted end, so we're going to need to fix that. By the way, this is from TCS. We're going to do axle shafts, including putting new inner CVs. Reinstall the cross member and the shift linkage, and we're going to do something about the brakes. I'm going to have to scavenge some parts around the shop. I'm not 100% sure if I've got enough to put the brakes together, so that may or may not happen, but we'll see. All right. And the other thing too is a lot of it's going to be in sketchy, uncomfortable positions, so a lot of the footage today is going to be from the GoPro. All right. And now you can see why I've been avoiding this job for a bit. So we got to fix this. Let's take this rubber line off so we can find some good. See if we can avoid dropping rust in our eyes. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful under there. All right. This actually looks beautiful underneath here. I'm going to take just a bit more rubber off so that I can push the nut back and be able to flare this. And by the way, we could just get a longer flexible line and put an end on here, but I want to use this bracket to brace everything. So, because see, this line is not supported until, about here or so. And I'd like it to be supported at the end. All right, let's cut the cancer off. All right, so just checking this. This is my die. The line's going to need to be straight, so I'm going to have to at least temporarily straighten that out. And actually, I think a clamp and the die itself will be the best plan, but I need to cut a bit more off. All right, it's a lot straighter. And we have a beautiful flare. Pretty much 2 inches exactly in the center of that hole. That's not perfect, but it's close enough for me. I can kind of adjust some of these bends here, reach even better. Now, this line from TCS, unfortunately, fits right through the hole. So let's fix that. So just went to the Bridgeport, quickly bored out a 5/8 inch washer. Now everything's actually retained. All right. I feel that's a pretty reasonable repair. So now what we were actually here for. The clutch slave cylinder needs to be replaced, which means this bracket, this all needs to come out. All right, so this is what we pulled out. You can see on this bracket, the clutch fluid is supposed to come in here. There's a bleed point here, and then there's 2 lines that go up here. The idea is that this can actually bleed because it's going from the top, but this is always rather tricky to bleed. So I think this is off the Camry. I just got it right from TCS, but it just puts 1 line input and the bleed right there on the transmission. And because of the way it points, it doesn't interfere with the exhaust. So let's get the lines off of this. And then put this. And we're going to bench bleed this before we put it in. And just a quick trick while I'm here. I was about to remove these lines and haven't shared this with you. These Nipix flat pliers, they were great for brake lines. Okay, well this one wasn't seized much, but this thing, even if they're all mangled and seized, we'll just take them right out instead of stripping. All right, and let's get as much brake fluid in here as we can. Temporary cap back in, and we're good to go here. Next, we want to get the line so that it is also full. All right, so sometimes when the lines are dry, what you want to do is take the little cap off of there, and if you have a pressure bleeder, that's even better, but this is the same idea. And we're just going to pressurize it gently. And we find that the fluid's moving nicely. Okay, we're done with as much of the bleeding as we need to do before things go together. Cap on for now. Now let's go plug things in underneath. I doubt the angle is right, but we just want it to stop leaking for now. Now at this point, the system is almost bubble free. We'll have to bleed it just a little bit more. Oh, that doesn't taste good. Okay, good, we didn't run out. Okay, and the trick to testing this, we're going to start the engine and we're going to see if we can get it in first and second gear. If that works, then we will see if we can get into reverse. And reverse is unsynchronized, so if it goes in smoothly into reverse, you've got proper clutch bleed. Oh yeah. I can shift into reverse, no problem, and see if we're off the clutch. It just makes grinding noises. Sorry, I had set the transmission in motion. But, yeah, no problem. All right, I guess that knocks out the clutch line, the clutch cylinder, and the shift linkage. All right. I guess we got to get to axle shafts now. All right, and here's the axles. If you're buying used axles, this is about what you're going to get normally. Now, the dust is because they've been sitting in my shop for a while, but you can see there's a torn boot there and whatnot and some nastiness. We want to inspect these all over. So first thing we're going to do is just a full disassembly. And we're going to do both at the same time so that we don't have dirty parts and clean parts on here at the same time. All right, so sometimes they don't want to separate with the CV tool. Sometimes the pipe trick works. There it goes. All right, time to start with a clean workbench. All right, so in here we've got denatured alcohol. So nothing ridiculous on the hands. I took the outside, I wire brushed it, and let's just go ahead and clean it all off. Here's a boot kit right from Toyota. This has everything we need to put it back together. The bigger tube goes in the outer joint. Okay, most of this is just going to get squirted in there, but we want to make sure that absolutely everything is covered. So I use a brush. Alright, and we start putting the balls in. Alright, and when you push a shaft in the middle, it'll squeeze out. We'll put a little bit more, and then call it good. And unfortunately, for some reason, Toyota does not include a new snap ring for the inside. So we're just going to use some 308 TIG filler rod around a mandrel and make our own. I think that'll work. It just needs to look like that one with the ears that come in slightly more at the end. And that just tries to ensure that it doesn't just sit in the groove and can slide out. So let's clean the splines, let's clean the shaft, put that on and assemble it. And by the way, you can't use the one that comes with it. It's too wide. All right, and then you just put it in. Okay, we just need to check, make sure we're all the way down. Check the motion, should be very smooth, and it shouldn't come apart. Just a little bit more grease, and we put the boot on. All right, that's outer number one. For the inner joint, we're going to keep this nice and simple. We're going to use this Fabest, whatever, part number, and we're just going to install it. Alright, so before you grease any of this, in this recess here, we need to install the gasket. If we try to install it after this thing is greased, nothing is going to stick. Well, that's frustrating. They did not supply an adhesive type of gasket, which is going to make installation a lot harder. Alright, well, it is what it is. There's some grease in there. And there we go, a pair of axle shafts ready to go. So let's head under the car and install them. Earlier, we had machined this shaft to move the bearing over, but that's no longer necessary. I actually have this thing here now that I sell on the store, and it fixes that problem. This bolts right to the 2GR, and without moving this bearing, which I've actually placed back where it was, you can just install it, and you're good to go. The other thing is, instead of these things used to tighten with a bolt on the bottom that has a rubber tip, and I've seen too many times where people have lost the rubber tip and they just tighten and they break the bearing and then they have all kinds of issues. So instead, there's actually an O-ring in the bottom there, and you just push the stub shaft against it, and when you put this clip on, it actually puts just enough friction on the outer race that it'll stop the rotation. Same thing that that bolt used to do. So I'm going to install this stub on the right side with this bracket, and then we're going to put the CV on that side. So the new bracket installs like the old one, including the two little holes for the registration pins. And axle shaft slips in, being mindful of the seal. There we go. Now you do need to compress that O-ring a little bit. That's pretty easily done. I'll show you how here in just a second. There we go. And now we put the CV in. Oh, I see the problem. Huh. I've never made that mistake before. It never even occurred to me. I've got the tie aligned with one of these bolt holes. I can still make it work, but something to note, I guess, is to be a bit more mindful of the alignment on that. It's actually a lot easier to put these on first. These lower control arms. And also make sure you put the toe arm in its pocket, otherwise you'll have to disconnect it at the other end. Okay, so that'll hold it up. Then we get the jack out of the way. And now we have 1 degree freedom less to worry about when we're trying to get this bolt aligned. Go. All right, guys, I'm going to call it right here. Some of the hardware I need to go on a scavenger hunt for, and I'm really not feeling it. It's way too hot in the shop right now. Plus, if you look at these brakes, the pistons are seized. They're really going to need new rotors. I need to go through, and the front brakes are not in much better condition, so I need to go through and do a full brake job on this, and that's beyond the scope of a 2GR swap, obviously. And this really should be, something to consider. If you're looking at a car that hasn't run in a while, this is the kind of junk you'll run into. This car was parked as a running car, but it was parked for about 10 years. So, anyways, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.